Esther McVey, former Minister for Common Sense. She might agree with me. Esther, very good morning to you.
Morning.
I mean, it's a very bizarre thing, this Prime Minister that we've got, isn't it? I mean, I can't understand how he's so almost deliberately just doesn't get it. He seems to move from one crisis to another. And as I say, just when you think he's going to do something worthwhile, he kind of takes the wrong decision again. And he's been very grumpy about this whole voice coach thing ever since the beginning of it when it came out at the weekend.
Well, I think it's that moral superiority he had, that he would be telling people they couldn't do this, and he was going to be really like the moral police.
Yeah.
He was going to be whiter than white. And I think this is the hypocrisy now that he will get, which will probably see him off in a way. So this two-tier Kia, whether people were talking about that on the policing, they're now going to talk about that about him. So let's get back to this voice coach.
Yeah.
So the police can't look into it, so they say, because it's past the 3-year limit to look into it. But there will be political probing, whether it's by his opponents or why it's by the public. Because the question everybody wants to know, how did a voice coach become an essential worker? And how was it she had to come in person on Christmas Eve to give him voice coaching? And the public want to know that. And I bet you, at home, his wife is saying, why did she need to come to the home to do this, break lockdown rules for voice coaching? And as I said, I think it's the sheer hypocrisy that he went on and on and on about Boris having a piece of cake at a birthday, etc., when look at what he was doing, flouting the rules, or what he did is change her status to essential worker. Why was a voice coach an essential worker?
Yeah, exactly right. And I mean, it's almost as though they've kind of conceded that she's not. But they yet haven't kind of admitted guilt, as it were. You know, they've now sort of changed their tune from going very hard on the fact that she was an essential worker to now saying, oh, well, it was a work event. Rachel Reeves was there. I mean, in Prime Minister's questions yesterday, you know, he talked about working into the night when Tories were partying into the night and tried to make a contrast between, you know, them being profligate with the nation's money and the nation's booze. And yet here he was, you know, burning the midnight oil, working hard into the night. I mean, nobody's buying that, are they?
No, I think you're right. Nobody's buying it. That's why he must know it's difficult to answer any questions. Hence, he's not answering questions. People just want to know, well, what was the reason? How did it happen? Well, it seems to me he can't answer that. It has a bad whiff about it.
It does.
And when things have a bad whiff about it, people go after it, don't they?
Well, they do, because, you know, there's nothing worse than a politician who tries to dodge the issue. You know, you've been doing this business for a long time, as I have. You know, the one thing that you can't do, particularly if you're the Prime Minister, particularly if you're in a position of some authority, you can't just assume it's all going to go away, which seems to be a strategy on pretty much everything. And I tell you what, I was watching him in Prime Minister's questions yesterday, and those two women sitting on either side of him, Angela Rayner and Rachel Reeves, I've never seen two women looking less happy to be there, because they were just looking grim. They looked as if they didn't want to listen to anything he said. And I smell kind of, you know, blood in the water, if you like, inside of the Labour government. There's both of them sitting there thinking, I could do his job.
Well, they might be, but they've got their own problems, haven't they? I mean, I look at them and they don't really want to be there. It's not just his questions. When you sit on that front bench, you know all the cameras are sort of aimed at you, and it's possibly a moment to reflect on your own briefs. And Rachel Reeves must be thinking, I'm lucky to be here as well. That budget has been a disaster. It doesn't matter who you ask, business people, farmers, pensioners, students, disaster. And then, you know, Angela Rayner, well, what is she doing? She's never going to have all those houses built. She's now stopping elections, certain parts of the country. She has got her own dilemmas. So I think it is, we're looking at the front bench crumbling. It was so easy to throw stones in opposition, and actually they haven't got a clue when it comes to governing. And you said, and it made me smile, is Starmer frightened to go out the country because he might come back and find that the locks have been changed? No, actually something very sinister is happening in Parliament at the moment. Nobody's here. He's making sure no Labour MPs are here, because if they're in the House, they will plot, they will plan, they will look to remove him. And at the moment, business is crumbling of a Monday night night, a Tuesday night, a Wednesday, Thursday, people aren't here. He is sending them home.
Wow.
So they can't plot against him.
That's extraordinary, isn't it? And I mean, are you surprised, as I am actually, at how quickly the skids are under this guy? You know, because I think we all, I mean, I was prepared for a government that might not be to my taste. I was prepared to see them resetting some of the things that the Tories had done over the course of the last 14 years. But I wasn't prepared quite for such incompetence and some quite ludicrous arrogance from this lot who don't seem to care what the public thinks of them.
You are right. And actually, in the corridors in Parliament, some of the, we'll call them veteran Labour MPs, are saying the same thing. They cannot believe they weren't prepared for government. They cannot believe they haven't put processes in place. They simply think you can say a word and it will happen. And I look at them and I see they're out of ideas. I look at them and think they don't know what they're doing, out of their depth. And I also think they've run out of energy. They're a busted flush within 6 months. It's quite incredible.
Yeah, it really is.